Hello and welcome everyone to another plugin test that I'm doing. This time it will be about ddsp by Magenta. And if you don't know Magenta yet, they are basically a subgroup of TensorFlow, which are AI and neural network people who just like to dive into different subtopics or, just getting creative with AI. And in this case, they are getting creative with audio. And obviously that is like the most important thing ever. Now they have released stuff before, as you can see. A MIDI plugin for Ableton Live. Yeah, 5 of these actually. I would say that from what they released so far, it doesn't seem like the people at Magenta have a lot of knowledge about, the whole culture around making music with the DAW, because otherwise they would have realized that you shouldn't make innovative stuff just as an Ableton Live patch, but as a VST plugin earlier. And I always found it very frustrating that they did this, because it's really cool stuff, and it's just only for Ableton, as if everyone uses Ableton. So people who actually get into VST development for the sake of VST and for the sake of the whole culture around VST, they wouldn't do that, but Magenta did that. They somehow must have realized that it was a mistake, so the next project was actually released as a VST, and it's called ddsp. Now it sounds like I'm not very grateful for this, but I wanna actually highlight now that this is all free. So I'm very grateful about it. It's just a weird decision to release something only for a few people, no matter if it's free or commercial, except if it's just way easier. Like for example, I'm not releasing officially for Mac, because that would require me to have a license, and that costs money, while developing for Windows is basically for free. So you can focus on free plugins much more than as if you had to pay some fees all the time. Anyway, enough of this background story. So what does this thing do? Basically it can transform your voice into some other instrument. Now this is what the GUI looks like, and I'm sorry that it's so bright. You can change the size, but all you should do with it is just making it as small as possible, so that the size is not too annoying on your eyes. Now I recorded some vocals here, and they sound like this. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. And with ddsp it happened to now sound like this. So what did I do here? I selected the model of vowels, so it should transform whatever input you give into something that resembles vocals of different vowels. And yeah, you can change around these vowels by dragging that little rectangle here. You can pitch shift the audio. You can say how much harmonics and how much noise you want to have. And you can select an output gain, and there is a little bit of a standard reverb, but I didn't use that because it's always better to use your own reverb stuff. And yeah, that's just what it does. The most fascinating thing about this is that you can train your own models here, but this feature doesn't work yet, unfortunately, because when you go here, and then there are these instructions that tell you what to do, and you click on this link, then it brings you to a GitHub page that just doesn't exist, unfortunately. But I think they will fix that at some point. I already made a bug report. And yeah, now I actually want you to show how it feels to use this plugin. So let's just mute all these effects or disable them and type in ddsp again. And now the first thing that I want to mention is how elegant it feels to just type that, because D and S are right next to each other. At the beginning I wasn't sure what it means, ddsp, and I thought what kind of random name is that, but now I know it is like that on purpose, so that you don't have to memorize some name, but you just have to memorize that these keys are very next to each other, and that you get the effect by typing it like that, which is cool. Now I have the standard, the default preset now, and let's just play it back. Now that was supposed to be a flute, and when this point is to the left of the rectangle, then on the manual of this plugin it was said that one has to pitch shift it up so that it's more or less in the sweet spot. So that's supposed to be a flute. Now we can try an octave more. I would say that's even more of a flute. Now what else can you do here? You can turn down the noise amount, or turn up the noise and turn down the harmonics. Now this is a little bit problematic now, and I've already made a feature request regarding that. But the noise volume slider only goes to 1, and there is no way to make the entire plugin louder. So if you want to make a patch where the noise is very prominent, then you have to wrap the plugin in some sort of wrapper, or I don't know, use your mixer channel or a post game plugin, and then yeah. Yeah, so that worked. Now in moments like this, I would wish that the VST3 standard had the ability to have multiple outputs for one input, because then I could make a feature request that basically says make an output for harmonics and one for noise, so that I can put different effects on the harmonics and noise part of the signal, which would be quite awesome, I think, because I just had the idea you could, you know, just put some stereo effects on the noise so that you have some density and interesting width, but then have the harmonics fully mono so that they have a little bit more power. That would be cool. Or maybe put reverb on the harmonics and instead use distortion on the noise. That could also be interesting. Yeah. Now you probably want to know, I'm turning up the harmonics again. You probably want to know what this rectangle does, so let's just play around with that. With a double click it goes back to normal, which is a cool workflow, definitely. It's kind of interesting that it constantly makes noise, no matter if you actually play something back. That is very weird, but cool in some way. It sounds kind of breathy. Now, how do the other built-in models sound? Let's check the violin with this part of the section. It was a bit harsh for a violin. Let's try the violin again with this pitch. Still kind of very breathy. Okay, I have noise component very high. Let's try the other way around. Still kind of breathy, so that seems like a saxophone to me, but saxophone sounds like this. Cool, cool. Bass on. Oh yeah, that was cool. This is how it sounds when you deliberately go into the wrong direction. A nice gnarly sound. I don't know if I would say that that sounded like a sitar. I think a sitar has more of a decaying tone. So it seems like ddsp cannot abstract the way the envelope of the instrument behaves. Now that's kind of interesting because it sort of transformed vocals into a different piece of vocals. Now it's sort of a vocal that says eh, a softer voice. And that's an ooh voice, which is actually kind of cool. Want to add that to my parallel chain here. Alright, I wanted to add the chain as well. Okay, so my CPU seems to be a little bit stressed out now, but it's not a surprise at all because this project is already big and my computer is not getting better over the years. But it's still sort of working a little bit. Just so you know that the clicks that appear now, that's just something that my computer does when it's stressed out like that. It has nothing to do with the plugin here. Plugin is cool. Now, so there were some things that I wanted to talk about despite the lack of dark mode, which is first of all the resizability is cool. You can even change the aspect ratio. So once dark mode exists, I'm looking forward to use a very big size because it just looks like a very neat design. Now what else? Yeah, as I said, when turning down harmonics and noise, then the output gain knob's just not going high enough for this to be very usable. And there is also something else that I want to talk about, which is well, there is obviously there must be a pitch detector in this thing somewhere, because otherwise the plugin couldn't tell its internal synthesizer what note to play. So it basically detects the pitch from my input vocals, from my monophonic input. And now one thing that always makes a lot of sense when there is a pitch detector in the plugin is to actually output the MIDI, because then I could now just use Rift Feedback Lite in MIDI mode and it would pick up the frequency and I could let it resonate even more than it already does. But the plugin does not output MIDI, so it's basically not possible. Now there's also no MIDI, no dry wet mix knob in this plugin, which I don't have a lot of an issue with, because it's just transforming the sound so much that you probably want to have it on different channels anyway. Now the built-in effect, size, damn wet, yeah, I don't know, it seems an awful lot like they just took the first best reverb that there was and just took that as you know, the reverb that they put into the plugin. Usually when people just put a reverb into into a free plugin, it kind of makes me feel like it's a very cheap plugin, like nothing too special. And then it makes me judge about the plugin before even using it. And that's often a problem with, for example, with piano plugins, free piano plugins that you find on the internet. They often have very little love for detail, except for the sample library a little bit. But there are always some very odd things going on, like that the attack knob only makes sense on the first 2% of the entire range, or that, well, that they just put some reverb in there, even though it doesn't sound too good, and it's just, you know, the standard reverb, probably just the juice standard reverb even. And yeah, I think that just doesn't cut it. If you make an effect section and even use the plural form of effects, and then it's just the default juice reverb, then you could just as well just make no effect section and let the user you know, add their own effect. And yeah, that's just one of these points where you can really see that the Magenta people are not specialized in VST plugins, because people who actually use a lot of VST plugins they know that when a VST has an effect section, then it's because you can assign your own modulators to it and stuff like that. It's something that really justifies the existence of an effect section. But when there is just an effect section with not a lot of effects and no way to modulate it, it just seems like people just low-key tried to make it easy to make the sound a little bit better. I don't know, maybe it's good enough for some people who just wanna fiddle around with this for the memes, but I think everyone who really tries to make a cool sound will use their own reverbs and stuff. People are very pedantic about their reverb sound sometimes, and I am as well. I don't think I have anything else to say about this plugin. I think I might have sounded a little bit harsh at times, because I'm like giving a lot of critique, but it's basically just critique on a very high level. Like, I could not even be close to developing something like this that just takes a sound and transforms it into an entire different flavor. Obviously, it's not always the perfectly usable sound that you get, because it's all a little bit sloppy, both in terms of time as well as pitch. But that was to be expected, and I think you could easily just render out something that you made with this plugin and then time stretch it a little bit to actually make it fit to your production again. Or you embrace the sloppiness and just, you know, say that this is just in a slightly lo-fi timing or so. So there are really a lot of ways to go about the sound of this, and I think it's a perfectly usable plugin. I think it's kind of insane that it's actually a free plugin, because there must have been a lot of work going into this. And even if not everything is perfect, then we can still safely say that this would normally cost money. By the way, we can perfectly see that this is a juice based plugin as well, because they didn't implement small steps on the mouse wheel move, and also didn't implement sensitive drag on mouse wheel. Now, lately I made a poll where I asked you all what kind of sensitive drag you all like most, and only a few people of you selected shift plus mouse wheel. At least you didn't select CTRL plus mouse wheel, I would have really questioned everything I believe in if you did that. But most of you really like sensitive drag on actual mouse drags more than mouse wheel. That was kind of interesting for me to see. I didn't expect that. And it's always cool to see something that you didn't expect. It changes your perspective as well. And I had some very vibrant discussions with people about when it's really just objectively better to use sensitive drag with the mouse itself and not its wheel, mouse click drag, which is when you need to be really precise and you just can't have the stepped value of mouse wheel, even if it's a very small step. There was an eye-opener to me, because I never thought about that specific case. It was mostly always okay to me to just sensitive mouse wheel somewhere. But even if sensitive drag is on click drags is like something that is more popular among you all, I still continue to say that people should implement the sensitive drag on mouse wheel motions. Also for free plugins like this, because I don't want to live in a world where I only have to remember that it was once for a thing to have sensitive drag on mouse wheel 10 or 20 years ago or so. I just wanted to keep on being a thing, because why not? It's not in the way of anything else, unless you have a scrollable section of the entire UI where you can, scroll modules around or so, then it could be a little bit in the way. Like the effect chain down here, when you have actually a very long effect chain, then there will be scroll bars. In cases like this, obviously it's questionable if the knobs should also have scroll behavior. But that's just rarely the case in a VST plugin, so I really don't see the point why it would not be implemented. Please, everyone, implement it, even if it's not your favorite. And also these developers. Now I'm again on such a negative topic. I want to spread positivity, but I can just say this is a really cool sound. And I think that should be reason enough to just check out this plugin now if you haven't already.